Bark River and Fallkniven are the two most popular knives that I sell in the store to both hunters, outdoorsmen, people that are looking for a tough knife to put in a backpack to go out on an extended camping trip. It gets really tough sometimes to know which knife is exactly the knife that you need when you can't pick the knife up and feel it. You're ordering it online, and it gets even tougher trying to explain it to people. So what I'm going to try to do in just a couple minutes is show you the more popular versions of each knife and hopefully help you out in making your decision. We'll start out with the Bark River knives and show you 5 of the more popular models that I handle in the store. Starting in the foreground, the very first knife that we're looking at is the Gunny. This was recently introduced by Bark River. It's 8.5 inches overall. Blade on it is 3 3/4 inches. And it's approximately 0.154 inches thick. The next knife is the Bravo 1. This is 9 inches overall, 4 1/4 inch blade. The thickness on the blade is quite a bit thicker. This one comes in at 0.215 inches, much heavier duty knife. This is a knife that Bark River developed after a suggestion and an inquiry was made by the Marine Corps Expeditionary Force to come up with a good tactical knife for them. The final in this series is the Bravo 2. This is the big one. This is their workhorse. You need to have some pretty serious brush to go through before you can really use a knife like this to its full potential. The Bravo 2 measures 12 1/4 inches overall length, has a 7 1/4 inch blade, and the blade is 0.2 inches thick, actually just a little bit thinner than the Bravo 1. So these 3 knives were part of a series that Bark River brought out, going from major workhorse, all around, down to a little bit smaller, more practical field knife. The next 2 Bark Rivers we'll talk about in the foreground is the Gameskeeper. The preceding to the Gameskeeper was the Gameskeeper 2, which was a little bit bigger knife all the way around. The Gameskeeper is probably a more practical size in that it's 9 3/8 overall length, has a 4 1/2 inch blade, and the blade is 0.215 inches thick, which is a pretty beefy blade on a knife this size. Has a nice long ricasso for doing close-up detail work on a skinning project possibly. The second knife in the background is the Smoke Jumper. The Smoke Jumper is based on an American Bowie pattern. Again, we're getting into a little bit bigger knife, not quite as heavy a knife as we saw in the Bravo series. But the Smoke Jumper is 11.2 inches overall length, has a 6.2 inch blade, and all of the other Bark Rivers that we've seen have had A2 carbon tool steel blades, which is a fantastic steel to use in a knife blade. The 5100B that they've used in the Smoke Jumper is another very, very fine blade steel. And this blade does come in at 1.75 inches thick, a little bit thinner than we saw in the Gameskeeper. Fallkniven makes a wide variety of knives and different blade coatings, non-coated, folding knives, fixed blade knives. These 4 knives really exemplify the key or the backbone, I guess, of the Fallkniven line for me at TSA Knives. The knife in the foreground is their F1. This would be the smallest of the 4 knives that I'm showing you. The F1 is 8 1/4 inches long, has a 3 3/4 inch blade. Now the blades on all of the Fallknivens you're looking at are made from a VG tin laminated steel. All other blades are hardened to a 59 Rockwell hardness, which is a pretty hard steel. The second one that we're looking at is the S1 series. The S1 is 9 3/4 inches long with a 5 1/8 inch blade. As we go up, the blade lengths get a little bit longer in each of them. The next one is the A1. This is a knife that I personally use, really fond of. It's a little bit bigger knife. The A1 measures 11 inches overall, and it has a 6.3 inch blade. The last knife back here, this is their big workhorse. This compares to the Bark River Bravo 2. The Fallkniven A2 is 12 3/4 inches overall, has an 8-inch blade, comes in, I believe, at just over 13 ounces, so it's a pretty hefty knife. But if you're out in the brush and you need a heavy-duty knife, this would be the one to fall back on. Well, the comparisons between the Fallkniven and the Bark Rivers aren't going to be exact. Hopefully this will give you a little bit better idea what you're looking at when you compare the size of the two knives. Obviously, each of them have different characteristics, but size-wise, if we'll take a look at the very first Fallkniven, the F1, we can compare that with the Bark River Gunny. Both of these knives are comparable, a little bit of difference in shape of the blades, obvious differences in the handles. But size-wise overall, very comparable. The second Fallkniven we can make a comparison with, the S1 compares with Bark River's Bravo 1. While the Bravo 1 has a slightly shorter blade, you can see the overall size of the two knives are pretty close. Now, in addition, on the S1, we can also come in and make a comparison with the Gameskeeper. Again, the Gameskeeper is slightly shorter, a little bit different design when it comes to the blade tip, where the Fallkniven has more of a clip blade. We have a little bit more of a Skinner type design on the Bark River, but very close in size. The third Fallkniven, and my personal favorite, the A1, probably compares most favorably with the Bark River Smoke Jumper. Both of them have a clip style blade. Blade lengths are very, very close. The one thing I do like on the Bark River is the long ricasso. I do like room to get my finger up close to that cutting edge on that blade. That's the only criticism that I've had on the Fallkniven in the years that I've used it, is you don't want to get your finger up here on the blade. The Fallkniven A2 makes a great counterpart to Bark River's Bravo 2. Both of these knives are workhorses. These are knives, as I say, you're going to have a special application or be in a situation where you almost need a machete, but you really want to have a knife. These two knives are big, heavy-duty knives. Both of them are designed to do heavy-duty work, anything from cutting brush to taking care of the toughest jobs you might encounter around camp. But that's the best comparison I can make for you. Anytime you have any questions, or if I can send photographs, I'm always glad to do so. But the Bark Rivers and the Fallknivens, two fantastic knives. I've had experience with both of them. Have nothing but good things to say about either of them. I do have some preference in the different models, but you can't go wrong with either one of them.